Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. Once again, this is Big Baby Reviews. Today we are looking at the New Mutants number 85, cover dated January 1990. So this comic to me basically is very symbolic and ushers in the 90s, right? The extreme 90s. Who better to usher in that decade than, two of its hottest artists working together here. So this is officially Rob Liefeld's first piece of artwork for the New Mutants. The title that he would go on to popularize and rise that, wave of popularity to the top of, the famous artists, popular artist lists back in the 90s, right? McFarlane here inking him, so another artist who would climb the ladder and become one of those hot artists of the day. So McFarlane not being as heavy-handed in his inking on this cover as I feel he will be a little bit later on over top of Rob Liefeld, so you still feel a lot of the Liefeld and his kind of ticks and lines. But I don't mind, as later on we'll talk about those covers as well. McFarlane's style starts to take a little more control on top there, and you'll see I do think it has this effect of kind of unstiffening, if that's a word, some of Liefeld's illustrations and anatomy and posturing. And when we get to those issues, obviously I'll talk about that. One fun little fact about this cover here, at the time, John Romita Sr. was the art director at Marvel. For some reason, didn't like Liefeld and McFarlane's rendition of Odin, so he redrew it here. And if you do pay attention, there's always I've always thought there was a disconnect, even before I knew that, between the way the face looks here and the typical kind of depiction and tropes that Liefeld uses when he draws his faces, right? So definitely this pattern of art directors and editors doing this to artists. They did it to Kirby at DC in the 70s and with his Superman faces. I definitely hope this is something that, has probably gone away in the past 20, 25 years. I don't hear much of that happening today. I feel like, an editor would probably call up the artist if there was something to be changed and ask the artist to do it. And, in severe cases, maybe you have to kind of, bite the bullet and do it yourself. I just hope that's not common practice anymore. It's certainly not something I would want done to my artwork, and it's certainly not something I would want done, I would want to do to someone else's. So there you go, a bit of story here. On the cover, Liefeld's first New Mutants illustration artwork, and then we move on to his first official actual issue. So interiors and the cover here. He does mention, because Liefeld sometimes has a way of homaging artists, but sometimes forgetting to maybe include it in the signature. It's kind of a typical thing artists should do when they're doing an homage, which is, using someone else's composition and redoing it maybe with different characters or with a more modern style. That's what's going on here. This is based on a classic Spider-Man cover by Steve Ditko. So I do appreciate very much the fact that Liefeld gives him the credit right here on the cover. This is also inked by McFarlane, so I would say this is a cover that's still, you're getting a bit of McFarlane on the edges here and some of the rendering down here, some of these horizontal lines maybe, but I still feel like most of it comes from Liefeld, and that'll change as these covers move ahead. Another bit of McFarlane, though. I feel like the way he's inked and drawn the mouth here is very McFarlane. Everything else seems to be pretty much consistent with how Rob Liefeld was drawing at this period. So there you go. Let's crack her open, have a look inside. So the one thing, I'll mention right from the top, it's a different inker, right? But Rob Liefeld is credited as penciler, and Bob Wiacek is the inker, Louis Simonson writer, Joe Rosen letterer, and Glynis Oliver colorist. So obviously we're not getting full Liefeld quite yet. Is Wiacek doing a pretty good job? I mean, it works, right? It's a little more... it's almost as if, he's kind of thinking or seeing in terms of kind of like he's inking Eric Larson. I feel maybe he'd be a little more suited for Eric Larson. But I mean, I don't have that many complaints. Speaking of Eric Larson, is that him in the background here? I'm kidding, but there's a mysterious figure there that, I guess is the Tinkerer, as the Vulture is calling out here. Want to point out too the storytelling, right? It's not what we come to associate with Liefeld with, one or two or three at the most panels per page. I mean, this is a splash page, so that could be totally okay for an introduction page. But as you see, there's quite a bit of storytelling going on here, right? And I don't know, there's something in the face here where I'm like, Liefeld lost some of this. This is pretty good. I like this face here. This is something maybe he, could still be doing. I don't see it much in his artwork anymore. This big fat nose, a little cartoonier, a little more kind of brutish in the features, but every artist kind of settles into their own tropes eventually, I guess, and some stuff kind of falls by the wayside here. I mean, it's basically a penis nose, right? Love these down shots. Liefeld always does a lot of them. Sometimes they work better, sometimes they don't. I do think here it works pretty well. And there's that, oh my god, that penis nose. It's got like warts on it. Dear Lord. But fun. Interesting, right? Interesting Liefeld. So again, another one of these down shots I talk about that Liefeld does. You know, he uses them a lot, kind of in establishing shots and stuff. This is kind of a proto one. He's going to start using this to death eventually in Youngblood, but not badly done. And I would say, again, the inking overall, you know, fairly consistent with Liefeld. Maybe trying to give it a Marvel house style just a tad, but still being pretty close to, I think, what he was probably laying down the pencils. This truck here is, you know, not bad, but kind of toyetic. That is a word I heard in a documentary about toys. It's toyetic. So yeah, I'm just surprised by the amounts of storytelling he's doing here, and he's doing a pretty good job. Again, the vehicle not so hot. Kind of like it here. It's a little bit compressed and out of shape, but it works. Again, probably on a deadline, right? Monthly comics. Lot to read. This is when Marvel, you know, still kind of following the Chris Claremont model. Just a lot to read. And to be honest, like, a few pages here and there like that, but when they're always like that, I just kind of start to tune out and just check out the artwork. Most of the times the artwork, you know, at least in this stage of Liefeld's career, the storytelling is clear enough and there's enough information that we know what is going on visually so that we actually wouldn't need quite so much dialogue, I think. Great down shot here, typical Liefeld shot again. Again, no complaints with the storytelling. Everything's clear, concise. Vulture busts in, steals this thing, whatever it is. He's hauling the canister through the skylight. It's one of those plot devices, I guess. See a lot of vertical panels, I think, up to this point. Is that kind of a 90s thing? McFarlane kind of influence? I'm not quite sure. Obviously, those guys are kind of working together. Maybe this is in around the time of those classic phone calls that they, you know, McFarlane and Liefeld have talked about. They would call each other while they were working and drawing, inking. So definitely some influence from McFarlane. Like, look at this. A very small shot here. But man, I think that's great. It's like Liefeld loses this kind of aspect to his art after a while. Even here, this profile, I really like it. It's like the way he codifies the profile is just, you know, he stops doing kind of cartoonier, more interesting faces, different shapes, different volumes, right? Pretty good at the action, though. Yeah, this just, to me, seems like a sweet spot. It's almost like if you could take this, to me, better storytelling and better composition overall, and just kind of throw Liefeld's flashier inking style that kind of develops with X-Force and early Youngblood on top of this, then you would really have the best of both worlds at that point. Because he's still really working in, I find, you know, the storytelling chops. Again, the vertical panels, love it. Kind of a repeat of the cover here, which I like. And it all just, yeah, the perspectives and stuff work. The anatomy's, you know, not too weird. The hands are still fairly normal. Maybe the inker's helping him out. I don't know, because there are still instances of like, what can I do to not draw the hands, you know? I do see feet pretty much throughout this comic, so, you know, no problems there either. Yeah, just still, you know, the number of panels gets bigger here, but he's working it. Definitely not being stingy. Now, we are getting near the end of the issue, so maybe the number of panels per page starts to cut down. That's kind of a common thing. But then you get to a page like this, you know, which I do feel, I mean, this is the Arthur Adams influence, right? You can see it all over Rob Liefeld at this period, but, you know, I do feel a lot of this. I mean, these actual characters here are in some sort of annual by Arthur Adams. So, you know, don't quote me on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't a few Art Adams swipes in this page here, or on this page here. I don't have that annual with these characters that Arthur Adams drew. I think it's an annual or special, but I've seen it before, and I feel like some of it's familiar. I could be wrong. This, okay, this just came to me now, but if that's not, what's his name? Cannonball, right? Is this like some sort of trope of Cannonball? You know, I know Cannonball being lying down, you know, having been injured from X-Force later on. These I did not read initially, I have to point out. I'll say that now. When they came out, I got them later. I actually started Rob Liefeld kind of comics with X-Force #2, which I reviewed way back when I started this channel. So this is me going back to something that I didn't read at the time. But again, just the storytelling impresses me. You know, the Flash will come later, and it will come later. But at the expense of storytelling, I find a composition where, you know, most of the stuff here, you get a bit of weird kind of stiff Rob Liefeld pose here and there, but I find most of it is pretty solid, you know. Most of the anatomy and the posing and stuff and the body language, pretty solid. Then you get to this page, which is odd. You know, it almost feels like it was drawn from his thumbnails. Rob Liefeld's known to do smaller thumbnails. So I don't know what's going on here, but there's a sharp drop in the art, and even just the line that's used is very thick. And this seems to have been done so quickly, like this page. Maybe it's a deadline kind of situation, and this is to help kill that deadline. Even this page too, I do feel like the art kind of drops off. And, you know, I didn't really have these issues back in the day, and there's a official Cable first appearance is in the next issue, right? Issue 87. And this they'll call a cameo, where you see his arm, but you see his face. So I would argue, to be honest, that Cable's first appearance is issue 86, right? But I guess his full appearance and where he's actually kind of featured as a character, obviously, is 87. Just like Wolverine, right? And what is that, 180, 181, I believe? Or maybe 181, 182, not quite sure. But for some reason, if you introduce a character on the last few pages, that's not considered officially their first appearance. The next issue is. So there you go. Don't understand that logic exactly, but, you know, it's not up to me, I guess. So there you have it. New Mutants number 86, officially Rob Liefeld's first issue on New Mutants, that the title that he will bring to, you know, the highest of heights, and then turn into basically, you know, the 90s equivalent of New Mutants X-Force, and the beginning really of kind of that extreme Image style that we've come to love from him. So thank you so much, guys, for checking out the channel. I really appreciate it. I hope you like the episode. If you do like this stuff, please like and subscribe. It helps us keep all this kind of stuff going. And I just want to wish everyone out there, hope you have a great day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.